Adobe is making a big bet on AI. But in this era, legacy can become a liability. Adobe helped define the modern creative economy, becoming the biggest name in design software. Now, Adobe is at a major crossroad once again: lead or be left behind. That tension is at the heart of Adobe's recent leadership shakeup, which saw its CEO exit the company. As AI disrupts how content is made, the question is whether Adobe can remain essential. I'm Ruth Umo, and this is Fortune Next to Lead. Anil Chakravarthy, thank you so much for joining us on Fortune Next to Lead. Delighted to have you.
Thank you for inviting me, Ruth. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, Anil, you have quite an interesting leadership story. You went from CEO of Informatica. You're now Adobe president overseeing customer experience orchestration business. I do just want to touch on that pivot because leaving a CEO role for a president role isn't a common move. It's an interesting one. What led you to make that transition? Was the move focused on scale? Was it platform ambition? Was it timing, or was it something more personal to you?
Yeah, to me, it was the opportunity to really lead one of the leading enterprise apps categories in the world, right? I think with Informatica, it was a billion-dollar company. I was, as you mentioned, the CEO of a company. It was privately held. So when I looked at the space that Informatica was in, it was definitely a very good company with a very loyal customer following. But it was a company in the data world, provider of tools for data management. Compared to Adobe, where really the footprint was how to create the next big category in enterprise software. If you think of an ERP, for example, or a supply chain or a human capital management, really the next big category was around customer experience. And Adobe was already the leader there, but was really poised to do a lot more, which is what we've done in the last 6 years. And frankly, the culture at Adobe. Adobe is a company of constant transformation.
Well, let's zoom into your very work and how you're thinking about innovation. And I'll kick it off by asking quite simply, if AI can create a finished video or an ad from a simple prompt, why then would someone still need Adobe's tools?
Yeah, I think what we see is the base capabilities will keep improving. The more ubiquitous base capabilities become, the harder it actually becomes to differentiate and stand out. And that's where I believe that we will continue to have a very vital role to play. Producing a video is a tactic. It is, it's like producing a document or producing an image or etc. They're all tactics. But if you can't encapsulate why you're doing this, it's the why piece of it that brings our tools into the picture. And so what we do is to say, look, if there are base capabilities that can be easily used by creative professionals, that's why we announced, for example, we said we do integrate with lots of third-party models. In fact, we're getting a lot of utilization of the integrations we have done with, say, Google, with Nano Banana or Runway or Flux or other models, because they serve a particular purpose. They're a tool, but then you have to put the tools into a solution that our customers can use, because they are trying to actually then whether they are creators, whether they're creative professionals, they're actually trying to accomplish a personal purpose or a business purpose. And it is that bridge that we create with our tools.
I'm sure in your role, you're hearing quite a bit from marketing chiefs as customers. If AI agents can autonomously design and test and deploy campaigns, what then becomes the strategic role of CMOs as we move forward?
The strategic role for CMOs will be, first of all, to connect with their business and connect and define their brand. Let's say you have two banks. One bank is focused on high net worth individuals, a high value of customer service, and that's their brand. And yeah, they may charge you more fees for that, but their brand is defined by exceptional service. But there's another second bank, which is just a low cost provider. It makes sure that it cuts its fees to as low as possible, but they provide you great service and they're a robust bank. The business strategies are very different. They're both banks. If it's just AI, well, the AI for a bank will be the same AI. It'll do the same marketing for both of them. And that then it defeats the purpose of employing AI. So you have to be able to, first of all, understand your business strategy and say, what is our customer base? What do they expect from us? What is our business strategy? And how do we map marketing to that? The next thing then is to then say, how does the brand play into that business strategy and amplify the business strategy, protect the business strategy, and take it forward, right? And so then you say, what are the aspects of AI that I want to be able to use to change process and change the skill sets of people, change the partnerships I have with maybe other outside parties, with like system integrators and agencies and so on, and define it and set it up. But it's got to go in that order. Otherwise, it'll seem like if AI could do everything and you should start with the I think it's going to be the last mile, because you'll get to a point where suddenly, yes, the AI is producing something, and then you say, but I can't run a campaign based on that. And then you say, why? Well, it doesn't feel right. That's not what our customers are looking for. And then you're trying to fix it at that point, at the time you're ready to launch a campaign or you're trying to do something, and you realize the root cause is actually much further upstream, because you have to understand the business strategy and the role the brand plays.
How do you view competition? Is Adobe competing with other companies within its industry, or are you competing against the fact that creative work is becoming easier and cheaper for everyone?
I mean, it's a great question. Look, we believe that AI, just like every transformation that we've talked about so far, actually expands the addressable market for us. Creativity is in everyone's DNA, and everyone has a story to tell. And they will tell it differently. I mean, whether they're working for a company, whether they're individuals or a small business, what AI is going to do, just like other tools did. When the desktop publishing, Adobe created the desktop publishing revolution. Everybody could become a publisher. Before that, publishing was much more contained to it required a lot of upfront investment to do that. The same questions existed for Adobe when we went from desktop to software services. Hey, there are only so many users of Photoshop on the desktop, but in reality it was more than 10 times that number by the time the software as a service revolution really took off, right? We think the same thing is going to happen with AI is going to make an agentic software is going to make it applicable and available to many more people on the planet, and that will create a lot of new opportunities. So there will be new competition. There'll be some of our existing competitors, there'll be new competition, but I think that's not our primary lens. Our primary focus is on the customers, because that's what we believe expands the market.
What I'm seeing is there are now more simpler tools for beginner creatives, lower cost professional alternatives, like Canva, for instance. So, how do you ensure that the next generation of creators starts within the Adobe ecosystem rather than elsewhere?
We are hugely focused on it. We've seen a lot of success with Acrobat, for example. With Acrobat, we have over 750 million monthly active users. Everybody is familiar with our Acrobat tools for work with PDF and so on. We say for the creators and creative professionals, it is how do we provide AI-powered tools that bring them that power and precision to do what they want. You can have tools that help you create a starting image or a starting video, but then how do you put your personal stamp on it? And especially if you're a creator or you're an influencer, if you are a creative professional, you want to have something that's your distinctive style that makes you stand out. And if you're working for a brand, you want to make sure that the brand's image and look and feel and distinctiveness is captured in that.
Some longtime creators, however, have felt maybe somewhat unsettled by product decisions. I know you all recently phased out Adobe Animate, and so they essentially see it as prioritizing efficiency over craft. What is your response to that, and how do you balance innovation with loyalty to longstanding professional creators?
Yeah, our community is super important to us, and we listen very closely to our community. And one of the things that we do is we track how they are actually embracing the world of AI. The same person and their view on AI today may not be the view that they held 6 months ago. When they look at how AI is evolving. So one of the big things that we do is how do we listen to individual voices within the community, because they love our tools, they work with our tools for a long time, but at the same time make sure that we understand what is changing and how they want us to help them change as AI and the new technologies evolve. So what I would say is we are constantly rapidly evolving. We're leading them through that. We do believe that we have the opportunity to help our community really showcase what is distinctive about them. When you have a large community like we do, and it's in a time of rapid change, constantly listen, plant the flag, but also adapt.
How do you personally stay ahead of technological change while running one of the largest SaaS businesses? What are you doing to stay abreast?
I talk to customers a lot, so we hear a lot about what they're using, and especially because we serve so many different industries. The amazing thing about the AI world is that our engineers have embraced it completely. I think in the couple of years earlier, when we would have a handful of people who were looking at some of these AI tools and so on and saying, "Oh, this is cool, let me try it." Now it's everybody. So as a result, virtually every meeting that I'm in, virtually every conversation that I have, I'm picking something up.
And how are you using AI, whether it's in your personal or professional life?
The Copilot, we have that for everybody. I do use ChatGPT Enterprise. We pretty much have that for everybody within. So those are the two main outside tools that I use. Internally, we have a lot of great tools. I mean, the main ones that I use a lot is on under Acrobat. We have the Acrobat AI Assistant, as well as part of Acrobat Studio, we have something called PDF Spaces that we release. That's really cool. That's one that I use a lot for document comprehension and document, even now for more for document collaboration and creation as well. And then on our Adobe Experience platform side, I use that AI assistant a lot because what used to take sophisticated knowledge like SQL servers and so on, SQL to be able to do that, we now provide through natural language and through a conversational interface. So that's the other one that I use a lot.
Well, it's quite clear. I mean, you are a tech leader at your core. I personally am a Luddite, and I think many people are like me in that they are not as intimately familiar with tech, certainly with AI. How deeply should non-technical leaders, especially C-suite leaders, understand artificial intelligence?
As users, everybody needs to be able to do that. They're changing rapidly. It's important to have a personal sort of a feel for it, of what it can do and what it might be able to help with. And that varies by industry. Of course, there's general productivity tools like a Copilot type tool or a Chat GPT Enterprise that everybody could use. It's definitely important to understand the nature of software and what is going to change and so on, and especially because there's a lot of innovation in that area. And it's important also to keep that in perspective for every business leader. Every time there's a technology shift like this, I'll give you as an example the first one that I went through when we went from the mainframe world to the client server world. Whereas previously they depended on a few companies like IBM for everything, they could now build their own software programs. There were many companies that built their own email because they could. And they struggled with it for 10, 15 years. Finally, 15 years later, they said, you know what, I should just switch to Microsoft or whatever, or Gmail for my email. I shouldn't be in the business of building my own email system. It's that judgment that, regardless of whether somebody is technical or not, every business leader will need is for their business, understanding the potential of AI and then applying the judgment to say, yes, there are things that AI will help us do, will help us build software more easily. But which software, which processes should we be automating with our own software? Which ones should we be working with a third party? That's both technical judgment and business judgment. And I think the technical leaders need to lean in more and understand their own business and project where the technology is likely to go. The business leaders need to lean in a little bit more into the technology and understand that, because that understanding cutting across business and technology will be critical to make the right decisions and not get locked into decisions like the email example I just gave you.
Where should enterprises draw the line between AI as a co-pilot, assistant employees, and then AI as an operator that's actually running parts of the entire workflow, especially when there are real budgets and real brand risk that's involved?
The framework that I talk to customers about is one to say, look, think of all software in the next couple of years will be agentic software. So the question for you, first of all, is going to be, where do you want to build that software? Where do you want to buy the software? What is that's core to you? So that's one. The second lens is, what is transformational in your industry, and are you in a position as a company to transform? Or are you playing more defense and you need to focus on the defense first, or are you the disruptor? And that really helps to frame what you need to be able to focus on. The third big thing to focus on then is to then say, from a process perspective, from an organization perspective, what is going to be truly going to be different? And there's going to be a spectrum of views, all the way from, oh, AI will do everything, to, hey, I tried it and it's never going to move from a pilot or a prototype into production. The key thing to remember there is pick a few areas, and you realize that with the AI world, you'll get to the 80% answer very quickly. And then to get to the 100% answer that's right for your business, that's going to be the journey you want to focus on. And that could take you years to get there. Once it happens, that will be the basic customer expectation of your customer. So you have to invest now to get there, because you have to assume that to get to the 100% answer, it'll take you a couple of years.
Absolutely. Well, let's look at it through a bit of a historical lens. I mean, you've led through multiple platform shifts across your career. How do you recognize when you're at a true inflection point rather than just another technology cycle?
Easiest test is to look at 3 years out. If you were, for example, in on-premise software, and you said, 3 years from now, if I tell my customers, my software can do all these great things, but it is on premise. It's not a piece of software as a service. It's not cloud-based software. Will they even listen to me past the first 5 minutes? So that to me is the test, is to say, are you really living through transformational change, or is this incremental change? And we're living right now through a world of transformational change.
Well, because we are living, to your point, in a world of transformational change, we're seeing tectonic shifts, certainly across corporate America, in tech especially. What leadership trait is most underrated as you look across the field?
I don't know if it's underrated, but I can tell you what is super important during a time of transformation like this, from my perspective, is to be able to really move as fast as the technology moves, but move in such a way that customers can actually get value, which might be a tenth of the speed at which AI is moving. So, the customers are moving at 10 miles an hour. So how do we make sure that we don't either go one way or the other? If we just move only at their speed, then we're going to be slow, and we're not going to be their trusted partner 3 years from now. If we move completely at 100 miles an hour, like the AI is moving, and break everything, and including the software that currently works for them today, well, we won't be their trusted partner 3 years from now anyway for that either. So the leadership trait that's most important is, what are the pieces that really need to move as fast as AI is moving, or faster? And what pieces need to move at the speed at which customers are moving?
Everyone talks about listening to a customer, certainly giving the customer what they want. It sounds quite nebulous. It also sounds quite obvious. It certainly is not. What does that mean for you in practice? And more importantly, what are your customers telling you? Do they know what they want, especially as AI is rapidly evolving?
We have to connect the dots and anticipate, based on what customers or multiple customers are telling us, where we believe the customers are going. They're not able to articulate exactly what they want, but they know that they have a problem, and they're happy to work with us to address that. That is what we take from customers, is not that they precisely tell us what they want, or that they already have a clear idea of where they're going. But when we talk to multiple customers, and especially then we narrow it down to customers who have the willingness to change, especially when you're inventing something new, when you're innovating and you want to work with customers, it'll inevitably go through some twists and turns. It's not, the right idea is not going to come in one shot. It's going to go through a process of rapid evolution. We take that, and we say, then what are the repeatable patterns that are emerging from that? Who are the customers who are actually willing to invest with us and try it out? Because there is some risk involved for them to try it out. And then how do we then scale it and make it available to everybody? That's, in general, I would say that is the approach we take for all the innovation that we're doing, that marries what the customers need with what is possible through the world of tech and with AI.
Well, enterprise software has traditionally been price per seat. If AI allows companies to do more with fewer people, what happens to that model?
If you look at some of the new AI tools, they are pricing per seat, which is always interesting. Which is so I think so. It's going to be interesting to see how that evolves. Absolutely, from an enterprise perspective, we have always been focused on value. We call that value realization internally, and then we say value realization is not enough. It needs to be value confirmation, meaning the customer agrees that not only is value being created through the software we use, it is actually value that they can see in their business results. That has always been the primary lens, and then there are multiple tactics to achieve that. The reason we price per seat is because that's how the customers wanted it. They said, hey, look, I have so many employees using your software. I might have these outside parties that I have as contractors. I want to be able to track who is using the software and are they using it effectively. That's what led us to price per seat. Second, there is predictability. I have a budget of X, and every time I can't tell how much your bill is going to be for me. That's not very good. And the seat-based software has had the benefit of predictability, and whatever replaces it will also have to have that same kind of predictability. And the third is the long-term partnership, something that signals that both the software company as well as the customer are going to co-invest in a relationship, and the pricing model reflects that. So I think, look, the per seat model evolved to be able to serve all three of those needs. What comes next, we will evolve along with that as well.
What is the boldest bet Adobe is making now that you think will have the greatest impact 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
This is the Adobe AI platform that we talked about last year. When we think about the Adobe AI platform, we think of it in four layers. We think of the user interface layer, which is conversational and hybrid, and the traditional interfaces can be brought together in the same context. We think of the agentic and the reasoning layer as the second layer for creativity, for productivity, for marketing. We have released a number of agents in that layer. Then the model layer, where we have our own with Firefly for imaging and video, but we have opened it up to any third-party model to be able to use it for our customers to be able to use. And then the data layer, where we are very, very super clear that the data is the customer's data. We don't monetize data. We don't use one customer's data with other customers, but we make sure that everything that we do is in the context of their data. So it's actually, there's no hallucination. It's actually usable for them. You asked the question of what is the fundamental bet we're making. We are making a bet that all four of those layers of our AI platform are critical for customers. A company that's only doing one part of it is not going to be able to provide something that customers can use and get value out of. It's got to be all four. And that bet, I'm pretty confident will stand the test of time.
Well, Anil, you sit at a really fun intersection of creativity and digital transformation, certainly with a keen eye on the customer experience. So here at Fortune, we will be watching. Thank you so much for all of your great insights.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, Ruth.